Hey, everyone. Happy Sunday. I rarely jump on camera on Sundays, but I felt I just needed to do it today. So I've talked to so many of you in my groups and my followers about why you are not tracking your foods, but you're trying to learn macros, rather it be a medical reason, rather it be that you want to lose weight, rather it be that you want to gain muscle. And so I'm really going to take the time to explain that to you. So the first thing is, what is tracking or logging your food? So basically, that is when you get some type of tracking app, as they call it, on your phone. Typically, you can do them from the computer, and what you're doing is you're putting in um, either an estimate or you're weighing your foods and your beverages that you drink. Anything that has a calorie, basically. I even say log a Diet Coke because of the way they affect your insulin. But for the purpose of the video, so say you had an apple. Now, very few foods are single macro foods, meaning even a piece of chicken is rarely just a piece of chicken. It's got fat and it's got protein, and some even has carbs, depending on if there's breading or whatnot in that particular food. So what I find is many members will say that I don't have the time to track. Now, through several studies, I know this is not true, and I'm going to explain this to you. Time is a human construct. That means time is what we make it in our head. Ever be at work and it seems like the day will not end, but then you could spend the same amount of time on vacation or doing something you enjoy, and time goes by, it seems like in a matter of a couple of hours. Well, it's the same thing. We often will feel overwhelmed when we're trying to learn macros because we feel that if I'm going to log a food, I have to think about it. Then I have to look it up. Then I have to weigh it. And then I don't have my scale, and on and on and on. You see, right? Imagine if you thought about that with anything. Say you got up in the morning, you would never get dressed if you had to think about, oh, how to put on this pair of pants, how to put on the socks. Does it matter? Does it match? Like, you would quit doing those things. And a lot of people and clients I work with do the same thing with tracking. They don't track because they either link it with a matter of time or they link it with emotion. And let's talk about that. What does that mean that you link tracking with emotion? See, a lot of people won't track their foods because they're eating something they feel unhealthy. And so they are linking tracking with the type of foods. Well, that's two separate tasks. Your tracking has nothing to do with the type of food you eat. Nothing. It should have only the task at hand is to just track your foods regardless. Track your foods regardless if you eat a pizza. Track your foods regardless if um, you have something all measured out. You would track your foods even if you don't have a scale. You would track your foods if you're traveling. The point is, why do you track? You track because even if you track, even not at the exact amount, say you're not weighing, then you still have a better estimate of what you're eating. Now, that's just step one. Now, let's talk about this. If you're tracking, even if you're choosing to eat something unhealthy, your subconscious brain will help you eat less of that food than if you did not log that food. Because many will say, well, I don't log because I know when I log, it went over whatever my macros or whatever that might be. But here's the thing, your body will still do what it does with your food, regardless if you track it or not. When you track, you actually gain your power back. You actually have control because you may not make it the perfect meal, but you will make a better choice in the portion. And it's not about perfection, it's about progress, right? If you tracked, you're going to make a better choice with your portion. I promise you, even if it's something, even if it's a beer, even if it's a margarita, I can tell you from personal experience. If I didn't track, I would probably have 4 or 5 margaritas. Because I track and I'm looking at it, I know 1 or 2 is like the max I'm going to do, because I understand I can't be in excess daily for me to keep the body that I have. And so I want you to think about that. If you're not tracking, rather that be time. There's only 2 reasons I see is people feel like there's a lack of time, and it takes seconds. I have timed hundreds and hundreds of clients and members that literally say, I don't have time. And from the start to the finish, on average, if someone logs their food, it takes around a minute and a half for a day. That's all. A minute and a half to log the actual foods that they put into their tracking app. So it's not a matter of time, because that can be done in seconds. The second thing is people don't track their foods because they associate their foods with emotions, right? So whether you had the beer or the piece of pizza or whatever that might be, someone doesn't log that. But here's the thing. When you don't log that, you start creating a habit that that's okay to do. So, many of you have children. Would you allow them to not do something because of the way they felt? Or you do, like, for instance, do they need to be cleaning their room because it's something they need to learn to be disciplined about? It's funny. We expect things from our children, but then when you put it on our side, we don't want to be disciplined to make ourselves track. And so tracking needs to be its own task by itself. Whether you're learning macros or you're not learning macros, people track for lots of reasons. You don't have to be learning macros to be tracking. It just helps you be more mindful, aware of what you're eating. And even if you were not on point with your macros, even if you made choices you didn't want to make, you are still going to make more progress if you track than if you did not track. I challenge you to track 30 consecutive days. No excuse. You make it a no exception. You make it that you say, I am so worthy of life and my health and my family that I'm going to track my foods to be able to increase my health. Like, it's up to you, right? It's your mindset. So every excuse you make about why you're not tracking, it's only for you, because I honestly will tell you nobody else cares. But what matters is you not tracking, especially if you have health problems, especially if you're obese, especially if you have high blood pressure, high cholesterol, had a heart attack, PCOS, like it goes on and on and on. You affect the rest of the world. You affect your community, you affect your family. Imagine the time it takes from your health, and maybe you can't be physically active with your children. Maybe you're under so much emotional stress because you eat bad. All of that makes a difference, because if you track, it's going to help you learn how to eat, even if you don't understand anything about nutrition. That is how you learn. When you track your foods, an app actually tells you, like, what is in a piece of chicken. You can learn over time to look in there, and it'll tell you how much fat, how much sugar, and how much what is in each food. And so that's the importance of tracking. Number one, to increase your awareness of what you're eating. Number two, to help you with portion size. You may not eat the correct portion today, but if you will go back tomorrow or the following day, what you will notice is your mind will start saying, oh my goodness, there's 1,000 calories in that. I'm only going to have a fourth of that next time. You know, that happens to me. Like, I had a Wendy's breakfast croissant this morning. In my head, I would bet it might have been around 300 calories, and I didn't think that bad on proteins and carbs. But I couldn't believe that a croissant sandwich so small had 42 grams of fat. 42. My fats for the day are like 69. So, that still surprises me how much crap they can put in fast food. Even, so don't let portions just reflect part of that. If you log your foods, it increases your awareness. It starts to teach you what's in something, no matter where it is, whether it's in a restaurant, whether you make it. And then the next step, it teaches you how to learn nutrition. Even though you may be in one of my macro groups, even though you may be taking classes, even though you may be coaching with me, I can't coach you enough to teach you what your tracking will help you learn. That's the number one step. It's the foundation of learning and being successful in macros. It's just like building a house. If we were going to build the house and we didn't have the concrete poured and dried yet before we started building up on it, what would happen, right? The rest of the bricks and the things would not stay, right? If the foundation, and that is what happens, is I will talk with people and they're trying to meal prep, they're trying to weigh, but they're not even tracking. Well, that doesn't make no sense. Because until you can track consecutively, I mean daily, for 14 straight days, you shouldn't be trying to weigh. You shouldn't be trying to meal prep. None of that makes a difference. None of it. Because all you're doing is building a house destined to fall to pieces. Because until you can track, you can't see what you're doing. You can make the best meal plan in the world, but if you don't put it in your tracking app, over time to go back and study it, your meal plan is nothing. Even if somebody wrote you a meal plan, I get people all the time because their meal plans are unsuccessful. Well, I don't believe in meal plans because they're not sustainable. But when I look at their meal plans, what I find is if someone were going to follow a meal plan, it looks legit. The problem is the the client is not tracking. So if you're not tracking, you can't see what part of that meets your macros because anyone can write you a plan, but if you log in the food, you could see that maybe the meal plan was in excess or below your intended macro. So even though you buy a plan from someone, you would still check it, right? If someone wrote you a check to deposit in the bank, don't you think the bank is going to check that check, right? When you put it in there, there's normally a hold sometimes on that because they're checking that the funds are in the bank. Well, it's the same exact thing. When you track your macros, you're checking to see that the food you're going to eat, the food you did eat, or the meal plan you bought from someone is even working because you can't tell if it's working if you're not tracking. And when I say tracking, I mean actually logging your foods. So the encouragement and challenge I have for you starting today is to start tracking. Put the excuses aside, like literally go back from yesterday to the best of your ability, put it in there and start putting in all of your foods to the best of your ability. I didn't say weigh, I didn't say conjure up a meal plan, I didn't say any of that. I said start tracking. You don't start changing things until you know what you're eating. You may already be at 100 grams of protein today. Instead of trying to revamp your entire life and spending 30 hours a week in frustration, instead of let's track for a week and see where you're at. Everybody is at a certain level, and so you may be closer to your goal than you want, and you may not be, but you have to identify where you're at. So the first step is tracking your food. So that's the thing, you have to track. You should track before you do anything. I get stories all the time. I'm studying, I'm reading books about macros. Okay, reading books is not going to help you be successful at macros if you can't make yourself track. You can read all the books you want. You can waste your educational life. That's why a lot of times all these self-help books don't work because no one ever starts. So I would tell you this. You have to start tracking. Lay the excuses aside, time, food, whatever it is, and start tracking. If you will track for 30 consecutive days, that's going to even give you the motivation because you should be getting your measurements starting today if you haven't got those. If you need those measurements are in my albums group. And then you need to be doing your measurements every 2 weeks. If they are not changing, then that's when you know either you don't have the correct macros, or you need to seek out for a coach visit to see where your gap is from where are you now into where you want to go. But you don't know that till you start tracking. I get a lot of people frustrated, but they've never started. There's nothing, you can't be frustrated when you haven't started. You have to start, right? I mean, that would be like getting in your car and being upset because it doesn't start, but you never put the key in the engine. Well, if you don't track, you didn't start macros. I don't care how many books you read. I don't know how many videos you watched. None of that matters. It means you've not started. So tracking is how you start. So I would encourage you today to start tracking. Let that be your Sunday motivation. And guys, I'll see you back tomorrow. Bye-bye.